What's up everyone? Today on Use What You Got, we're gonna talk about a project that I will probably never ever do again. But this is the champagne glass holder project on Use What You Got. To get started, let me take you back. So my sister-in-law tasked me with this project and I've done a few of these now. The goal of this project was to create a champagne glass holder that she could take to events. At my local Home Depot, they essentially told me they could only cut in 1 foot increments. Looking at this, which barely fit my car, I cut off a foot on the side and on the top, but it was nice that I was actually able to get it in my Atlas, and I took it home and got it set up so I could start marking out where things are going to go. I wanted to see what it would be like to cut the hole in preparation for the champagne glass. I'm using a 1 3/4 inch hole. I probably actually could go a little smaller, and it's always cool to see these little things after you've drilled them out. After cutting out the little groove or the little opening to put the glass in and out, just as a test, I did a little bit of a round over with my router, and it looked nice, but I ended up not going with that just because this project took way longer than I anticipated. I ended up getting some builder grade 2 by 3 inch wood, and right off the bat, I will say this: don't use this for your project. So after I pulled them out, I started marking my locations, and it took a little bit, but I think I got about 13 glasses per shelf, and the spacing was around 2.5 inches or maybe 2 1/4 inches apart. And I used my different speed squares and whatnot just to mark everything out, and then I went across each board and lined it all up. Once I was done with that, I started pre-drilling just so I could center the hole saw and it not, jump around as I started the larger holes. Now, I did all of this with my Ryobi drill, and to be honest with you, I don't own a drill press. I wish I did, because this took a long time to do. And to be honest with you, I would not suggest, if you have to drill 1 or 2 holes, go for it. But in general, I would not suggest doing this. The holes actually came out okay, and I was honestly a little afraid my drill was gonna die because it was literally smoking at times. But after drilling, I think around 52 holes, it held up and it's still working today. So kudos to Ryobi and helping me get through this project. Once I was done with the holes, I went ahead and I found where the front of each hole was and I lined them up. And because of human error, the holes were not perfectly lined up, but where I marked them, I made sure those were lined up on each board. I clamped them together and just ran through it with my skill saw. You could do this on a table saw, but this is essentially the quickest way I could think of doing it. Once I did that, of course, I had to do a test fit. It was able to fit through and everything worked out. This is pretty time consuming, but just going through, drilling the holes, cutting these grooves out, just this type of work is not difficult, but it's definitely time consuming. If you do this, definitely use a speed square or however you're gonna cut the things out. And again, please, my suggestion for you would be to use better lumber. Because if you think about it this way, once this is all finished and you're traveling with it and it's kind of probably getting a little beat up, it's most likely gonna break. And you'll find out in a little bit that actually happened to me. But before that, I wanted to mark out where these were gonna go on the actual board itself. Now, I wanted to make sure that the glasses were underneath this piece of black tape. Once I got that in position, I did some marking and I found that about 11 inches seemed to be a good gap in between each one to give enough clearance for you to put the glass in or take it out. So I started marking that, and then I kind of went through and marked the rest of the boards and just took my time to figure out where exactly these should be placed. Once I had them in place, what I did is I ended up making a line on each side of the board so I could start pre-drilling underneath the table. I marked out about 5 or 6 holes on each one, and I made sure that the holes were not where I drilled holes in each board, but that it could go through where there's some meat for the screw to grab. Once I clamped it down, I was able to go underneath and pre-drill through the plywood into the board itself to prepare for the screws. And I will say, even though I wouldn't suggest using this wood, and I will never use this wood again, once I had those screws in there, it was pretty solid. Oh yeah, that's sturdy. 3 more to go. And of course from here, it's just rinse and repeat, and you go through and you keep doing it. But before I put any more on, I wanted to cut in the center because this will have a hinge and fold in half. Now, one thing I want to try in future projects is a piano hinge. I've never tried it before, but I actually think it will be stronger than the way I've been doing some of these previous projects. And I had a very tragic thing happen, which I'll show you at the end, and that was partially my fault, but I do think in general, the piano hinge will end up being much stronger than the hinges I currently use. And of course, after I was done with all that, before the paint, I wanted to make sure I went through and gave it a really good sanding. I tell you what, after wiping this down and I used my little Alloy Man mini blower, you gotta check this thing out. Here's a link to the video. This thing is awesome and highly recommend for using on projects like this. We have painted a lot of our house with this semi-gloss paint from Behr. It is limousine black, and I've used it on my stairs, I've used it on my walls, I've used it on trim, now I'm using it on this. It's a great paint. One thing I'll say about this paint is no matter how you apply it, the first coat looks okay, but once you get that second coat on, it looks amazing. And I'll say in general, painting is always satisfying because you see your results so quickly and it's so satisfying. And here are some pictures after the first coat of paint was done. Once I flipped it over, honestly, one of the most time-consuming things of this whole project, aside from drilling these holes with the hole saw, was painting the holes from the hole saw. This was so time-consuming. This is after everything was painted and I took the time to apply the hinges. If you want to learn more about how I actually built this, I did this very similarly in another video I did recently, and you can go check it out here. So here's some final pictures of it completely painted, looking really, really nice. And I was so happy and ready to be done with this thing. And of course, just like my previous video, like I just mentioned, I wanted to take it outside and set it up and take a nice little video and picture of it. And that's when disaster struck. It was a beautiful winter day and I got it all set up and I turned around to go grab my camera to take a picture and the wind blew it over. And I was really, really angry with myself. It took me about 20 minutes to fix the hinges because they literally snapped off. I didn't get any pictures of it, and just in general, I was pretty frustrated. But I took a couple pictures right before I put it in my car to take it to my sister-in-law's house. And again, here's a reminder of what it looked like at the party. She wanted me to make it 4, and I tell you what, she is amazing in what she does. It's not perfect, but it looks great. And it fit really nicely with this other sign that had the seating chart. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions about the project itself, please let me know down in the comments. But I'm happy to share it with you guys. Don't forget to use what you got. Hope to see you in the next video. Have a good one.